In 2009, a stop-motion film hit theaters and quietly disturbed an entire generation of children. Not with jump scares, but with something harder to shake. That film was Coraline, directed by Henry Selick, the same creative force behind The Nightmare Before Christmas, and was adapted from Neil Gaiman's novel of the same name. Most people who watched it as kids remember one thing. Coraline's parents ignored her, and a better mother offered her everything she ever wanted. That reading isn't wrong, but it's incomplete, and that's what this essay is about. The movie begins with a family moving into the Pink Palace, a house that has been divided into several apartments. The family that is moving in are the Joneses, two parents named Charlie and Mel, with our main character being their daughter Coraline. In this section of the film, we are introduced to the character traits that define the entire motion of the story. Her parents are under immense pressure for a few different reasons. Their gardening catalog, the big move, and a car accident they had gotten into prior to the film. This makes them fairly distant in ways we will discuss later on in the film. Coraline, on the other hand, is an 11-year-old who is desperate for attention from her parents. She always wants to hang out with them, even when it is inconvenient. She is in a very new environment for her, and it shows. She's constantly bored with her current life and rather lonely. It is at this point in the story that Wybie, a neighborhood boy, gives Coraline a doll that looks like her. Keep the doll in the back of your head. It will come back up later. At this point, Coraline is exploring the Pink Palace because her parents won't hang out with her. In one of the back rooms of the house, she finds the outline to a small door that has been sealed up with wallpaper. She convinces her mom to investigate, but only finds a brick wall behind the door. When it turns to night, she is led to the door by a mischief of mice. When she opens the door, this time, however, she sees a colorful tunnel leading into a different section of the house. She enters this secret section to be met with an identical layout to her own home. The only difference in this place is it is very vibrant and colorful, opposed to the gray and depressing aesthetic of her own place. She finds her way to the kitchen, where she meets someone who looks like her own mother. At first, Coraline mistakes her for her mom, until she turns around, revealing that she has buttons for eyes. Compared to her real mom, this other mother is very charismatic and attentive to Coraline's needs. She's cooking foods and making drinks that Coraline would like, giving her all that she could want. When she meets her other father, the same thing rings true for him also. He's in vibrant clothing and is playing a piano with a song about Coraline. In this other world, she is being treated with all the wonder that runs inside of her own head. Whether that is the dancing mice circus, or a beautiful garden that looks like her. Everything was going as well as it could for her, until the other mother made one specific request. For Coraline to stay forever. In order for that to happen, she would have to have buttons sewn into her eyes. There is a very drastic tone switch after that, as Coraline realizes she was being manipulated through indulgence. She tries to leave, but is unable to. She learns that the other mother trapped the souls of 3 ghost children in the other world through the buttons, and that she feeds off of it. She was able to escape, but the cost was very real. Her parents were kidnapped by the other mother, so it turns into a rescue mission. Through this mission, Coraline learns to appreciate her parents, not resent them for inaction. She beats the other mother, but that isn't the true victory of the story. The true victory is the new mindset in view of her parents. I don't believe that this reading is wrong in any way, but it is very surface level. Let's dive a little deeper into it. Before I look at either set of parents under a critical lens, I think it's best to have a clear and concise definition of good parenting. Most people have a vague concept of what good parenting is. Providing for your child, preventing them from doing bad things, and all around doing the best you can for your child. This is why people read the parenting in Coraline in a misguided way, because their definition lacks fruit. Let's first define what good parenting is not, then move on to my own definition. Good parenting is not eliminating all discomfort for your child. Good parenting is not giving your child whatever they want. Good parenting is not always being there with your child whenever they want. Good parenting also isn't making your child feel good all of the time either. Because our world has been getting softer and more coddled over time, these have become standard in most households. These traits will not be setting your child up for success. It's actually on the contrary. It will make your child feel like they always get their way, and they will eventually have a very rude awakening. Now that we know what good parenting is not, let's define what good parenting is. The core job of a good parent is to create a stable environment for your child to grow into what they decide they want to be. Let's break that down section by section. Creating a stable environment is not about creating an environment with no consequences or no danger. They are going to get hurt, and that is okay. You just need to create the environment for them to bounce back from it in a healthy and safe way. This means to be someone that they can have a discussion with without you agreeing with them. You need to challenge them in order for them to start thinking critically. This is especially true in the real world, where most people will disagree with them. You should be the parent they're able to go to if they make mistakes. It doesn't mean to not punish them, it just means that compassion for the situation and love for the child must come first. The biggest piece of this equation is to let them decide for themselves who they want to be. This more applies to when they get to their teenage age, but it still can apply to the early childhood also. Your kid wants to be a soccer player? You're on the sideline of every game. Only draw a line if they are doing something inappropriate for their age range. When parenting fails to adhere to this, you see two opposing popular parenting styles. The absent parents who aren't around, and the enabler parents who give their kids everything. Although they are opposite reactions, they are not equal. Most people assume the enabling is the better option, but that assumption would be false, at the detriment to many kids in the world. Let's break down both of these fail modes. First, starting with absence. Love could still be there, but seemingly from a distance. When a parent is emotionally checked out, it can feel like they don't love their child anymore. In reality, this is far more common than people realize. Life gets in the way of a lot of things, including being a parent sometimes. When this does happen, the parents miss out on a lot of the actual parenting. Helping their kids through tough decisions, not being a person the child could go to, and not guiding their child through crucial life moments that could change their development. This can even lead to the parent not listening to the child, as we will see later in this discussion. Just because a parent is absent, that doesn't mean they are indifferent in their child's life, though. It usually means they are going through a lot right now and aren't handling it in a healthy way for them or their child. Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have enabling parenting. In this style, the parent is present. They aren't actually guiding their child is guiding them. It is a very destructive idea to allow a child to make all of their own decisions because they lack the critical thinking skills to make good and healthy decisions for themselves. If you could choose the food you ate when you were a kid, would you eat healthy? Absolutely not. You would have been eating ice cream for dinner. If you lived that lifestyle, however, you could develop type 2 diabetes. That issue could have been solved if the parents didn't enable bad behavior. Enabler parenting comes about when a parent is too scared to say no, which is a big problem. If you are trying to raise the next generation of human beings on this planet, we need to educate our children by telling them no. Don't just leave it at no, though. Explain to them why you were saying no, so they can start thinking critically about it. This parenting style is extremely harmful because it forces kids to live out their every instinct, which could cause a plethora of issues when they eventually grow up. These issues include acting fully on impulse, not being able to handle a no, only caring about what they want, and putting others down to lift themselves up. If this form of parenting failure is taken to the extreme, there is no real love in it. It's a lack of backbone to tell your child no, which is not real love. There's a real reason why children aren't able to see the nuance in these failures, however. Children operate much more on the emotion than adults do. So if they aren't able to feel any love, then it doesn't exist in their minds. They also lack the ability to sense motivation in a person. Let's say there is a parent who is absent. They could be sacrificing everything they can just so their child could eat. The child would have no idea of this because they're not able to critically think about why they have food. They just know that they do. This is no fault of the child, of course. They just lack the development that comes with age and experience. In order to fully put this into perspective for the child, they need a safe environment to learn and grow without fear of being destroyed by failure. This was Coraline at the beginning of the film. She is dealing with her real parents who are the absent ones. Then she's thrust into the other world, where the other mother enabled her to the fullest extent of that word. I have made my stance very clear that one of these is the far more harmful option. Before we get into why enablement is so harmful, let's first defend the absent parents. I am defending one instead of the other simply because there is no defense that can be made in this instance for enabling parents. Before getting into my argument, I would like to explain the difference between contextualizing actions and excusing them. If I were to be defending Mel and Charlie in their actions and excusing them for it, I would argue like this. Their actions are warranted and okay because they are under a lot of stress. Therefore, they are not in the wrong here. This is not my intention. They are 100% in the wrong for the actions they are committing, regardless of why they are doing it and how justified that actually is. But I would like to take away the harsh lens applied to them from a child's perspective, and look at the characters and their actions for who they really are. Let's look at what trait defines their characters the most. They are creatives. They are currently working on a gardening catalog, which holds so much weight over the parents in their current state. Since it is their job, it is also their livelihood. They are currently facing a harsh deadline that they are scrambling to meet, which could change the entire family's lifestyle in 1 second. What makes this hit so much harder for them is that their passion and hobby are their entire job. That would be enough alone to cause immense stress, but they're also moving to a different state. When we first meet them, they're dealing with the deadline of their catalog while having to deal with unpacking. To make matters worse for them, they had recently gotten into a car accident, leaving Mel in a neck brace, presumably injured. This is not a defense of the parents' actions, but much needed context missing from the common interpretation. Now that we know who the parents are, let's look at some specific moments they had with Coraline in this context. For Charlie, he has two seemingly opposed moments that show him as a parent. Early on in the movie, Coraline is bored, so she tries to hang out with her dad. He's busy typing on his computer and is too busy for her. He first had a conversation with her before sending her on her way to explore the house so he can work. This scene is doing some heavy lifting to make him seem like he doesn't love her. But I do not believe that this is the case. If he didn't love his family, he wouldn't be doing what he was in the next scene. We get a scene of Charlie cooking for Mel and Coraline. Even an absent father like Charlie still provides for his family when it matters most. He is shown to be a very hard-working father and a husband, even if he can't spend as much time as he would like with his family. This is a very realistic situation because sometimes in life, work takes priority over quality time. Now for Mel, we have two different scenes as well. When Coraline finds the little door, she starts to ask her mom questions about it. Since her mom is busy at work, she brushes Coraline off. Coraline keeps pushing several times, so Mel gives in and unlocks the door if Coraline promises to let her work. To me, this doesn't read as a fully absent parent, just a parent who needs time to work. Working can be very stressful, and it multiplies when your child needs your attention. In contrast, we see Mel spending the day out shopping for school supplies for Coraline. Coraline isn't happy with the uniforms they're picking, but it is showing some genuine care on Mel's part to go out of her way to go shopping with her. Again, the parents don't feel infinitely absent in these scenes, just currently distant. By themselves, the parents look like absent parents who aren't doing enough for their child, but as a unit, we can see that they are very loving and caring, just with some distance for the time being. Let's look at the nuance of what all of this means below the surface. The parents aren't demanding anything from Coraline in this movie. This proves that their love is true and unconditional. Even if they aren't showing their love to the fullest of their extent, it is still very much there and very real. Through these subtle acts of service for their daughter, we see true love manifesting. I believe that Mel and Charlie are giving 100% of the love they are able to right now. It might only be 15% of their potential love, but it is all of that 15%. When it comes to Coraline, she could be a very difficult child at times. She's constantly seeking attention from someone or something, and her parents get the brunt of that. This leads to her getting disappointed, even when her parents aren't wrong. They can't constantly hang out with her, and that is very realistic. Never in the movie, though, do we see either of her parents using any form of manipulation on her. There is no, "we hurt you because we love you," or any ultra-demanding standards that aren't making her miserable. It's just not loving her in the way she thinks she needs. Towards the climax of the film, we get a really impactful sequence. Coraline comes home from the other world, ready to be greeted by her real parents. To her own shock, her parents were stolen by the other mother. For the first time in her life, her parents were truly absent. They are stolen because they are truly an anchor holding Coraline in reality. Without them, she starts crying, wondering if she would ever see her parents again. It is the decision to kidnap her parents that really puts her parents into perspective for the audience. We finally see who her parents actually are, instead of Coraline's lens of them. We see the providing they had done since the beginning, but it was hiding behind an interpretation. With that being said, the parents' actions are understandable even if our perspectives of them have changed. All that took for us to realize that was to see Coraline lose them. The reason Coraline didn't see their love in the beginning is because of a child's perspective. When they are distracted in their work, she feels rejected from it. Her perspective at this point is, "Why don't you want to play with me? when the more realistic question is what is keeping them occupied from doing so. They are currently drowning in some real problems, like a hectic deadline and a big move they're recovering from. This is something that a child cannot truly grasp. Since a child has not developed into starting to understand the world, their fears are mostly imaginary. It's usually a monster under the bed instead of tax season. So it isn't unreasonable that Coraline just simply doesn't understand what her parents are going through. Since she doesn't understand, she doesn't see any reason her parents can't play with her. Coraline is feeling alone because she is in a new place where the only people she knows are her absent parents. As a kid, all you really know are your emotions because your brain isn't developed enough to fully think critically. Since she feels alone, that's encompassing her entire being currently. This isn't Coraline's fault, of course, but it is the main thing holding her back in the beginning of this movie. She's a very curious mind who is always seeking attention and amusement from things. But since she feels sad and lonely, she starts sulking instead of hanging out with Wybie or other people in the neighborhood. There are very real options for her to take, but she doesn't. I know when people look back at this movie and they see the parents, they see their own parents in Coraline. That is the main reason there is a false interpretation of this film, because people have a bias towards when they first watched it and their own life experiences. One thing to understand about Mel and Charlie as we close out this section. They are very imperfect parents in a very rough time in their life. They are dealing with so many things at once that they can't give their all to a single one. They tend to ignore their own daughter for their work, because it is what truly floats their living. But they created stability for their daughter, even in this time. Coraline wasn't hurt or in danger at all from the real-world environment she lived in. She was allowed to be her own person, even when her parents disagreed with her. This safe environment was so stable for Coraline, she wanted to go back to it when her perfect one crumbled. She fought for her parents back because they showed her true love that had no hidden text in between the lines. And once she got her parents back, her mom bought her the gloves she wanted, showing that she was truly listening all along. It was just a rough season for the family. It takes having to love someone unconditionally to finally understand the sacrifices made for it. Now that we have examined the absent parents, let's look at the opposite reaction. For the example of enabler parenting, we have the other mother. She looks exactly like Coraline's real mom, but with one key difference. She has buttons for eyes. When we first meet the other mother, she is cooking dinner for Coraline. This is important because Coraline has said several times she would rather her mom cook the meals. The other mother is a seemingly perfect foil to Charlie and Mel. She is ultra-present and gives Coraline everything she could ever want. This comes at a cost for Coraline, however, since the other mother's intentions aren't from a loving place. When we first meet Coraline, she makes it very clear what she wants in her life. She wants her parents to pay attention to her, and she wants to not be bored anymore. When she first goes to the other world, she believes that she has been blessed with all of that. Her other mother is right there, listening to her every need. Her other father, no different. He writes an entire song for Coraline, which makes her feel seen. Her first night there, she is greeted with a feast, including an actual gravy train. There is wonder in everything that is happening in the other world, something she is lacking from her own life. The other father maintains a garden in Coraline's likeness. There are even events like the Dancing Mice Circus and the amazing performance of Miss Spink and Forcible. This creates a very sterile environment. Even if it is enjoyable for Coraline, it is safe, and that's a problem. If she's in an environment that is fully catered to her, then she's not going to grow up from being a child. The other father is used as a tool of entertainment for Coraline. He's there with her in the garden, and he writes a song about her. He's there to distract her from thinking too deeply about why this world caters to her. It's worth noting that none of this world exists on its own. There was no dancing mice circus unless Coraline found it entertaining. The only reason that this world exists the way that it does is because Coraline designed it herself. Through complaining about her real life, the other mother was able to take that and craft the perfect world for her. That is, an empty void without Coraline's input. Why does Coraline fall for this clear manipulation of the other world? Because it feels like love to her. As stated earlier, children perceive the world through emotion. Since they only feel love instead of logically determining where love is, they can be easily led astray. This is shown in Coraline in blatant detail. She doesn't feel love from her parents, therefore it isn't there. That makes the other world very dangerous for someone like her. She feels all the love she could ever want, but it's only because it's indulgent love. She's allowed to do whatever she wants to, which in her mind is true love. From a child's perspective, it is the perfect life. She gets everything that she wants, so the people who are providing it for her have to love her. This is extremely dangerous for several reasons. It isn't safe to give your child everything they want, because most of the time, their wants are illogical. If you let them stay home from school if they want to, then they won't ever learn. If you let them play video games all day, their attention spans will be horribly uncalibrated. If you continue to give in to a child's wants, you are hindering their development. The other mother didn't just happen to give Coraline everything she wanted, rather handcrafted it herself. There were signs that the other mother was not very kind or loving, even at the introduction of her. A normal adult would have seen someone with buttons for eyes and ran the other way. In Coraline, we find out that eyes are the souls of people, and the other mother lacks them. Since she lacks a soul, she is void of all love. It is also very apparent that the other mother is the leader of this world, and created all of it. We get evidence of this when she said she fixed the other Wybe to not talk. It is a sign that something is very wrong here, since everything is perfectly curated for Coraline. The other mother is watching Coraline in the real world through the doll, so she knows exactly what would trap her. The other mother is controlling everything in this world, like a big illusion or mirage. We see this more in depth when we look at the other father and other Wybe. The other father made it very clear since the start of the film that he was being controlled. He didn't play the piano played him. No one in the other world is an actual person, but they are puppets controlled by the other mother. We see this when the other Wybe was put on mute. It seems that they do have free will, but whenever they do something she doesn't like, she punishes them and rules with an iron fist. The other mother isn't a good parent, because she isn't a parent at all. She is a dictator who tries to control Coraline's entire environment, to grow her in the way she deems fit. That isn't parenting, that's manipulation. After a few nights of going to the other world, the other mother has made a simple request: to sew buttons in the eyes of Coraline. When this happens in the movie, there is a heavy tonal shift. Coraline went from never wanting to leave the other world to trying to leave when the other mother isn't looking. The request sounds simple, but it has a very haunting undertone. In order for Coraline to stay like she wants, she has to give up her eyes to the other mother. This makes it very clear that the love that she was given came at a price tag. The other mother manipulated Coraline by conjuring an entire world just for her, making her want to stay forever. Then she threatens to take it all away, unless she does what the other mother says. She enables Coraline to do whatever she wants, but it is seemingly transactional. This makes the button offer almost impossible to refuse, but Coraline is smarter than that. She might not be able to articulate what's wrong with the other world, but she can definitely sense it. The tonal shift is what cements this fact for the viewers, and for Coraline herself. She tries to leave because she's scared of having buttons for eyes, but she is not allowed to leave. This proves that it has always been about what the other mother wants, not Coraline. With the mask uncovered on the other mother, it begs the question, what is her true motivation? Obviously, she isn't doing it out of the kindness of her heart, so there must be something darker under the surface. Coraline's best interest is not in the mind of the other mother, because Coraline would only stay stagnant at best in the other world. The entire goal of the other mother is simple: full control. In order for that to happen, she needs Coraline to love her, which is entirely transactional. She gives Coraline all of these things as a manipulation tactic to ensure the correct outcome for her. According to my definition of good parenting, this is the complete opposite of that. As a parent, you are supposed to nurture the environment so the outcome is special and functional, not perfect. Being ultra attentive to your child for the sake of control is child abuse, and there is no way around that. If you want to control your child with everything they do, and even who they are, then you aren't trying to raise a child. You are trying to raise the child you couldn't be, and trying to correct your failures through your kids. This parenting style is bad enough, but it is at the cost of the child's development. They will never grow up without needing their parents, which is the goal, meaning they will never be stable in society and won't ever be their own person. Coraline wouldn't become an adult. She would become a coddled person who never developed past the mind of a child. This is not just a one-off attempt of grooming from the other mother, but a recurring event. We see evidence of this through the 3 ghost children who let her take their eyes for buttons. They were seduced and groomed with everything they could have ever imagined and wanted. And of course, the mind of a child chooses yes to this almost every time. Coraline meets these children when she is put in the secret room behind the mirror. The children were completely gray and only felt like the shadow of a child. The children she sees are only a husk of their former selves, because they have lost their souls to the other mother. They were stripped completely of their individualism because they were controlled to the utmost degree. They lack any form of personalization, and it is because of the environment. It was curated for their taste, but they lost themselves in the process. Enabling your child to get the right outcome doesn't form a person, but a robot who only does things to please you. Although there are a lot of types of bad parents, the other mother is the most egregious example. She parades around as the most attentive kind and the one who shows love to her child the most. But this is a blatant lie. She is the worst kind of parent because every evil she does is disguised as good, which is the problem. Since she was a child, Coraline wasn't able to see through this manipulation. All she sees is a colorful circus of love coming from the other mother, but not the motive behind it. Although Coraline is not able to see it, we as viewers are able to. Since the movie is from Coraline's perspective, we have to read between the lines sometimes, but the evidence is very clear. We can see all of the manipulation behind the actions of the other mother, and it is disgusting and her actions are indefendable. Through the events of the movie, Coraline is able to feel loved by her parents to the fullest degree. It is really hard to know you're being manipulated, but when you are out from under it, the answers are clear. When you first watch this movie as a kid, the ending is about how Coraline succeeded and got away from the other mother. The ending, in actuality, is about how Coraline's character developed and changed over the course of the story. The movie would be worthless if it was just about her escaping. Would you want to watch this entire movie explaining why giving you everything you want is bad, and then Coraline just turns around and still demands that of her parents? That would make Coraline a bratty kid who doesn't learn anything. Her perspective shift is the entire heart to this story, because she finally accepted the love of her parents. Without that key beat to the movie, it would fall flat. At the beginning of the movie, she's complaining about her parents not loving her. At the end, she's going back to the other world to save them. The movie isn't about what she learns about the other world, rather what she learns about her own. She learns the other world is bad and doesn't have her heart in their interest. But that's not the key point to the movie. It's about her understanding, finally, that her parents truly love her, and that she owes them nothing for it. Before she wound up in the other world, Coraline had a very clear definition of what love was. Her definition was if she felt loved, then she was loved. If she got attention from people, she was loved. She would get annoyed with her parents when they didn't give her what she wanted, and didn't spend time with her. It's clear that her definition lacks truth in it, and is completely feelings-based. Through the events of the film, she understands now that love can be subtle. Her parents weren't very loud with their love, but it was still very much there. She just lacked the perspective to see it. Since going to the other world, everything has been re-examined under a new lens. The other mother let her indulge in everything, but it might as well have been cyanide. The other mother was poisoning her development for her own motives. Although her parents gave her a lot less than the other mother, it took real sacrifice to give her it. They worked countless hours to afford food for Coraline, which kept them from being around her. She understands that now, through the pain and suffering of the other world. In practice, her new definition of love is more fulfilling. She is able to look at adult grievances and understands her parents overcoming them all for her. After this redefinition of love, Coraline doesn't just want to escape anymore. She returns to the real world, only to find her parents were stolen by the other mother. If this was the same Coraline from the start of the movie, she would have stayed in the real world. But this is not that same Coraline. She risks everything to go back and save them. She makes a deal with the other mother that has some serious consequences. If she fails to find the eyes of the children and to find her parents, she forfeits her own eyes. If Coraline didn't understand that her parents do in fact love her, she would not be willing to sacrifice herself for them. She has overcome so much, and she almost threw it all away. to get her parents back. Through all of the hardship the other world put her through, she now has a newfound appreciation for her old environment that was truly filled with love. That is what she is fighting for. Parents that love her so much that they sacrifice everything for her. Parents that don't let her do things that would hinder her environment. Parents who are caring. That is what she truly needs. And it was only when that was taken away from her, she finally realized that. When she gets back to the Pink Palace, everything feels drastically different than before. She greets her parents with a huge hug and is overjoyed to be back under their care and supervision. She is looking at the exact same things as before. The gray and muted colors of the Pink Palace, that little door that turned into the tunnel to the other world, and even the picture of the blue boy and his ice cream. But there is joy behind those things that wasn't present before. The environment that she had fought with her life to keep had held up and was still there when she got back. That proves it was formed through love, that it endured when there is distance from it. One final moment happens that cements the fact that Coraline made the correct choice. Her mom buys her the gloves she had asked for in the store. This proves her parents were always listening to her. They just couldn't get her everything she wanted right that instant. It takes someone who has been through the course of life before to understand that. If you watched this movie when you were younger, you saw this as a very happy ending. Coraline defeated the other mother and was able to be happy with her normal parents now. They see the other mother as a villain, not because of what she did, but simply because she was a villain. They can't contextualize that overindulgence for a child is bad. An adult, on the other hand, sees this ending very differently. They see it as a kid who had a skewed definition of love, and they put that love to the test, and it didn't hold up. She then reevaluates her definition and changes it to an actual definition, realizing her parents really do love her in that process. In order to access this perspective on the film, it takes someone who has been through a lot in life, or at least who has grown up past childhood. It's not saying kids are stupid because they can't see the ending like this, but that they are just inexperienced to notice things like this. When you watched this movie as a kid, you missed out on the most important themes of it, and that is okay. It takes growing up and going through some fake love of your own to finally see through the other mother and what real love is. I know it's sometimes hard to know what love is, but it can be summed up in 2 words: unconditional and unwavering. In the grand scheme of narratives, there are a lot of movies about good parents versus bad ones. Coraline is not one of them. If this movie were purely about that, there would be zero nuance in the entire film. Her parents would have been clearly attentive in the beginning, and the other mother wouldn't have hidden her bad motives from the start. In contrast, we have a movie that is extremely nuanced, that shows the failures of 2 kinds of parents. It shows the duality between true love that is stable and fake love that is there to make you feel loved. One is born through dedication to a person. The other is born through transactional manipulation. The distinction between the two is lost in the mind of a child, which is why it is so easy for the second one to beat the former. The film is enjoyed to the fullest extent by someone who has lived life enough to understand these contrasting parenting types. This movie is ringing more true now than when it was released, and we are more mature now to handle that conversation. Although this entire essay so far has been about an animated blue-hair 11-year-old fighting against her other mother. This movie matters so much in the real world also. In Coraline, we see two sets of parents that fail in different ways. This isn't just fictional, but these parenting fails happen all of the time in the real world. This film isn't just showing off failures from its fictional stop-motion world, but it's holding a mirror up to our own. It's not about Charlie and Mel versus the other mother. It's a lot deeper than that. It's about being absent, or being an enabler. People relate to this film in that regard because their own parents leaned towards one or the other. Although we see a lot of absent parents out there has been a drift towards enablement as of recent. As enablement starts to increase, the parents who are more absent are often painted as horrible parents, when that usually isn't the case. There is no doubt in my mind that the directors and writers of this film picked up on that and wrote it in this way. Now that the culture has already been changing, this movie will prove to be timeless as it gradually drifts more and more towards enablement. As we have moved to the age of the internet and smartphones, people have been caring a lot more about their own image, and more specifically, the image of their kids. It now exists in the back of parents' minds of how they want their kid to look to other people, so they do everything they can to make that image a reality. They get their kid everything that the kid asks for, to make the kid happier, and to make them look like a good parent to other people. And it works. When what the kid really needs is intellectual nourishment. These types of parents think of their kids as an extension of themselves instead of their own person. These parents are seen as saints, and more strict parents are seen as horrible. Social media accelerated this parenting type and cultural shift. We now see parents who make content out of their kids, and they are performative. When they are called out on this, they claim to give their kid everything they want. Our culture has drifted so much towards this direction, we don't have a clear argument against it that they see as valid or charitable. The other mother is the perfect characterization of this parenting style, and she would become very popular if she was in the real world. This drift is very harmful to the next generation, however, and it's not something that is talked about in the mainstream media. When the drift happens on a nationwide level, we see very clear signs of decay in the culture. We are getting a whole generation of kids who were never told no. This might not sound so bad on the surface, but it has a lot of dark connotations associated with it. It means we are raising a generation of kids who can't handle failure or rejection. Since they were never raised in an environment that enabled safe failure, they are experiencing it for the first time as young adults. We are also seeing a rise in anxiety and depression among Gen Z. This is because they weren't taught from an early age how to deal with denial and rejection. Since they were always given what they asked for, they were unprepared once the real world said no. I'm not trying to say that this is where all mental health problems come from, because that isn't. But the statistics are rising for this very reason. There is a big connection found between overprotective parents and mental health issues in the children. For further research on this connection, there will be an article in the description laying out how and why this occurs. The problem with enabling your kids by never saying no is you are preparing them in the opposite way for the world. The world will tell them no all of the time, and they are not going to be able to handle it. You can't shield your kids from reality forever. Our culture has moved so much towards enabling parenting that the absent parents are seen as the worst types of parents possible. Our culture has moved so ideologically radical that any nuance within a given situation isn't acceptable. Let's say there's a parent who is working 2 jobs. They have a 12-year-old, so leaving them alone all day isn't the worst thing possible. What this soft parenting culture will tell you is that this parent is a bad parent. It is actually the exact opposite. During my own developmental years, from late elementary school to the end of high school, I was raised primarily by my mother. She worked a lot of different hours and was usually not home for me. Was she a bad mother? Absolutely not. She worked extremely hard to give me everything that we had, and she also made me feel loved in the process. The new doctrine on parenting is that you have to be around your kid 24/7 to be a good parent, but that isn't a good doctrine, and it also isn't very realistic. With Mel and Charlie, their parenting style is a lot more common than people want to admit. That is, parents who are stressed at home because of work. The demonization of these parents is exactly where our culture is falling flat in parenting. They celebrate the developmental degradation of this next generation because they never grew up to understand what loving their kid was. When it comes to good parenting, the goal is a capable child rather than a happy one. Of course, you can make them happy when the time is warranted and needed, but you can't intentionally coddle them in this regard. The whole point is to create someone who can participate in reality, not someone who is going to get worked up over a simple no. It's also a good idea to establish what real love is. Explain to kids that even if you aren't around all of the time, you are making sacrifices for them because you love them. You need to explain to them that they won't always feel love, and that is okay. Love isn't a feeling, but a commitment to a person. You need to make sure your kid knows who they are, because you give them the space to figure out that on their own. It's not about a controlled outcome, but a functional outcome. Coraline is exactly who she is supposed to be at the end of the film. A dreamer, an explorer, and a daughter who is loved by those around her. This is completely lost when the outcome is controlled. The honest reality is that this conversation is happening whether we enjoy it or not. People are not noticing the ill effects of this style, and they are talking about it. The only question I have for you is this. Are you willing to have that conversation? If not, what is stopping you? This conversation is one of the vital ones that will determine where we go as a culture in the coming generations. So inaction isn't viable here. Coraline was able to talk about it in 2009, so you are able to talk about it in 2026. Back in 2009, the film Coraline was able to lead with this question. Is being absent as a parent worse than being an enabler parent controlling your child's environment? The answer the movie gives is the answer we're not accepting now. It is far better to be absent than controlling. Let's look at where Coraline started versus where she ended. She started the movie getting told no by her parents, and her not feeling loved because of it. She ends it by having a garden party with the residents of the Pink Palace, finally feeling loved because she understands love now. This is not a perfect family, but a real one. Mel and Charlie are still going to be focused on work and still going to tell Coraline no. Coraline now understands that it is the love they have for her that motivates all of their actions. Through the events of the film, Coraline is able to settle into the real definition of love. Love is not a feeling you have for someone, but a commitment to that person. Even by people who love you the most, you won't always feel it. Sometimes our emotions are funny and they lie to us, so don't ever believe for a second that you are unloved. The ones who try to push us the most, who tell you no the most, who aren't always around you, are the ones who love you the most. Not the people you feel loved by. If someone says yes to everything you asked for and created a perfect environment that you would love, but they demand something in return, that is not love. That is textbook manipulation. This is the exact lesson Coraline learns in the film, and it is what the writers are wanting you to learn also. It isn't about material possession, but unwavering support. This movie means a lot to me, and I picked it as my first video essay for a reason. As a kid, when I first watched it, I thought the other world was so cool and I would love to go to it. I would imagine what my own other world would look like. But growing up, it made me realize how much my parents sacrificed for me. After coming to this realization as an adult, I started noticing these issues in the real world. Parents not telling their kids no, over-controlling what the environment looks like, and not letting them develop into who they are meant to be. I noticed that we are avoiding these conversations, and I wanted to change that. My hope is that I am able to reach someone else who has come to this realization as well, and to create a discourse together. If you made it to the end of this essay, I would first like to say thank you for spending your time today discussing Coraline with me. If you were able to resonate with this argument, I urge you to re-watch Coraline with it in mind and see if it changes anything within your thought process. I also urge you to examine your own childhood and your own parents in this way. See how you can relate to them in a different and more healthy way. This is not to excuse any bad behavior when it comes to parenting, but to contextualize and empathize with them. I hope everyone who watched this video enjoys this amazing film as much as I do, and I hope someone is able to take something out of my argument. Even if you disagree with me, I would love for you to state your reasons in the comments below. Just remember, it's a child's job to control the outcome of who they are. The parents are only there to establish the building blocks. As a parent, you are able to structure the environment your child grows up in. So don't abuse it. It's not a gardener who shapes what a seed turns into, but the seed itself. Thank you for watching.